Welcome to the show. Before we dive into the episode today, I want to invite everybody to the Summer 2026 Art Ed Now Conference. It's going to be an amazing time. And the reason I want to invite you today is that this is the last week for you to get early bird pricing with your registration. So if you're unfamiliar, Art Ed Now is the online conference that we do twice per year, hosted by Amanda and me, and it is built specifically for art educators. Okay, it's happening this year, July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd. We have our kickoff party with art making, games, and prizes. August 1st will be the main event. We have 5 hours of live hosted sessions from all sorts of incredible voices in art education, and we have the After Pass, which gives you year-long access to everything. Our featured presenter is Oliver Jeffers. He's the illustrator behind The Day the Crayons Quit, and he's also an incredible artist with so much to say about creativity and curiosity. It's going to be an amazing presentation. You're going to want to see him as well. Also, we're giving away thousands of dollars of cash and prizes for those of you that attend live, and professional development hours are available. So there is a lot going on. We would love to have you join us. And like I said, the early bird pricing is ending at the end of this week. So make sure you jump on that. Make sure you register. You can find all of the information you need, and you can register at theartofeducation.edu/now. Now, I would love to jump into this episode. It is one from the archives with Laura Irmis about trying to balance all the things we do. I thought it's perfect as we dive into the summer. Everybody's looking for new things to explore, new things to try. Laura has some wonderful things to say about this, and I think the conversation is really valuable at this time of the year. So let's go ahead and jump into this episode. Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by The Art of Education, and I'm your host, Tim Bogats. Back in January, Amanda Hine and I were in Florida to host the Now Conference. And we got to do a lot of great things while we were there. We saw a bunch of really nice galleries in St. Petersburg and Tampa. We saw some public art installations. We went to the Dali Museum. Just a lot of really interesting stuff. Most importantly, though, we also hosted a party for art teachers after the conference, and that was incredible. So shout out to Pinellas and Hillsborough counties for having so many awesome teachers, and shout out to those teachers for coming to hang out with us for an evening. We were able to hear so many amazing things that those art teachers are doing in their classrooms, and so many opportunities that they are providing for their students. But one of those art teachers that we met, her name is Laura Irmis. She's going to be our guest today on the podcast. So Laura is a ceramicist and an elementary art teacher and a mother and a graduate student, and does so much more. And, you know, I loved meeting her and talking to her when we met in Florida, and I'm excited to have her on today to just kind of talk about how she balances everything that she does. Laura Irmis is joining me now. Laura, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, super excited to have you. We met in Florida when Amanda and I were there for the Now Conference, and that was pretty exciting, and decided that you had a lot of cool stuff to talk about. So we should probably bring you on the show. So yeah, I guess welcome. And can we start with an introduction? Like, can you tell us about yourself, your art making, your teaching, anything else that you want to share?
Well, sure. So I started years ago as a ceramic artist and loved pottery since the second I touched the clay. And so I like to say I've always enjoyed playing in mud because I literally remember playing in mud as a little kid and making mud pies. So I've always had a connection with being outside and nature. And I think that had a lot to do with why I ended up down the pottery road, and as opposed to, painting and that sort of thing. So I was doing that for a while. And I started teaching classes at a gallery and had my work in different locations in Florida. And another potter that was in the gallery was looking to switch careers. And she knew that her high school was hiring and looking for a 2D art teacher that would eventually the next year become a 3D art teacher. And I thought, oh gosh, high school? Oh, I don't know. I don't know. And then it was a bit scary, but I did need something that was more substantial as far as income. And I had 3 boys. I had a 1-year-old at that point and 2 older children that were at a elementary school not too far from us. And so I took the high school job and really liked it. Okay. So I started doing 2D work, painting and drawing, which I still loved. I loved everything about art growing up. And then knew that I could teach pottery, the next year. So I did that. And so I really enjoyed it. I thought this is definitely something that I can do. And so I evolved into elementary because the school that my own kids were at was hiring.
Oh, can't pass that up. That's incredible.
Yes, right. So I thought, wow, what kind of opportunity. I have to take this. So that's where I've been now for 7 years. Yeah, 7 years this month, actually, because I started in March, the 2D level in high school. And so here I am, and I have one son still here. He's in 2nd grade. My other 2 are in middle school. And throughout that entire time, I kept making work. And really, I have to make work. I feel like a lot of creatives really have that need to make work. So if I'm not being creative, I'm just not a 100% happy, fulfilled person. So
yeah, absolutely. Understand that. And can we talk more about that? Like, I would love to know more about your ceramics practice, like how long you've been doing it. And I guess like with that current work that you're just talking about, like what kinds of things are you doing now?
So I have been doing it for about, if you count, I was trying to figure this out because it feels forever. But if I start with the year I was in college for my bachelor's, it's been 18 years. So before that, obviously, I was doing it. But once I was at Eckerd College, which is just a local college here, I knew that I needed to make more work and started selling and working a lot at the gallery at night. So I would have, whatever job I had back then, because I always had to work. I was on my own at that point. Mm-hmm. And so I needed the income, and I just started working as a coffee place, a little coffee place where they had ceramics and sold work. So I started working in the back, and I really just would work full time and then at night either teach or make art. So I've always created a body of work. And so it's evolved, obviously, like we all do. And right now I have a lot of functional art that I have on my website, and I'm selling locally in some galleries. But what my favorite thing to do is to throw on the wheel and then hand build. So I'll throw a round vessel and then cut and form that into a oval shape, basically, just to give you kind of an idea of what work looks like. And then I'll flip it and I'll twist it and I'll cut it so it changes into a hand-built looking form, but still has a nice clean edge.
Okay.
So it's kind of 2 in 1. So it's hand building and thrown. So it's a little bit of both, where it gives you that hand touch, hand build feeling, but looks a little more kind of perfected around that edge, which I really like. And then I will hand paint with underglaze a motif or some patterns. I typically like patterns. And I'm right now really into just high contrast black and white. In fact, I just started working with a black porcelain clay, which is really, really cool. I'm loving that. So yeah. So that's really fun. But the same idea, throwing and then altering.
Yeah. Very cool. So I was just thinking a little bit more about, I don't know, just kind of balancing your personal work with your teaching. And I want to talk more about that, but I'm thinking about, what transfers from like your own work into the classroom. And so I guess, yeah, that's part one of the question. Like, what are you doing in personal work that you can also take into the classroom that you can share with your students? And then secondly, like there are a lot of teachers that don't have that art making experience. They're really kind of like unsure of themselves when it comes to teaching clay. So part two of that question would be like, do you have advice for teachers who don't have your experience, who are kind of apprehensive about teaching ceramics?
Right. And it's funny that you say that because I found that same situation in our district here too. So I've done a lot of building workshops and just kind of answering a lot of questions over the phone or meeting in person about how to help them feel more confident, with using clay and the kiln and firing it. And there's a lot of stresses involved that they have.
Yeah, for sure.
So I would say, definitely ask other teachers. I know that when I started, it's just mayhem sometimes when you're not sure of all of the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. And then to throw something in there, that's way out of your wheelhouse. I can imagine how challenging that would be. So yeah, I would suggest joining a group if you have like a local teachers group like we have, and asking questions to all the teachers that have been doing it for years. In fact, I even reached out to teachers that I would meet at our district-wide trainings and said, hey, do you have like a minute? I have some questions to ask you. How do you plan out or whatever, your question may be, because they are always, I've never had a teacher give me any negative, I don't have time, they've been there, they know. And I feel like we all know how it can be, and we're willing to offer advice and suggestions. And then obviously there's a lot of stuff online, but I think it's also a good idea to maybe visit a clay studio and talk to one of the artists. Maybe you could ask them questions or ask if they would mentor you, or if you could just come in and watch them fire the kiln. Things like that I think would be really helpful just to see it, because it's different when you are told to do something than when you're doing it, as you know.
Yes, for sure.
So, and then as far as my work getting into my classroom, that definitely happens. I do a lot of texture stuff, and that's something I'm excited about. So if I'm excited as a teacher, we share that same enthusiasm, and I think the students can feel that and they can see that. So I think, whatever you're into, you should definitely incorporate into your classroom.
Yeah, that's great advice. I don't know. Anything, like you said, like anything that I was excited about, like that excitement is contagious. It passes on to your kids. Not as much at high school as it does with the elementary level, but it still happens. And so I think no matter what level you teach, like if you can share that enthusiasm and share that excitement, it's going to get kids engaged with what you're doing. And like I said, I think that's really good advice. So, I also want to talk, I know you are a current student at AOEU. You're working toward your master's degree. Can you share just a little bit about your experience as a grad student? Like, what has gone well for you, what you've enjoyed, maybe some things that have been difficult for you as you've gone through that process?
Well, I definitely love learning new things. I'm always looking and researching, which I think a lot of artists do too, but I think that the learning something new is so exciting to me. And I will be straight up honest. Almost every single class that I've taken, I'm about halfway done. Almost every single course I have somehow used whatever piece into my classroom currently. And that's half of the best part, really, is that besides learning something new as a person, as an artist, I'm literally taking the stuff that I'm working on in the course and bringing it into my classroom. It's fantastic. And I tell everyone the same thing. Now, I'm not trying to push myself too much because obviously, with teaching and 3 kids and having my own pottery practice, I'm taking one course at a time, and it's every 2 months. And so I'm really focused just on the one piece, whatever that course may be. And I don't know if I shared this with you, But when I took the watercolor course recently, now
Hmm.
I'm fascinated with watercolor.
Yes.
So I'm actually trying to figure out how to take a underglaze treatment, look like a watercolor onto my pottery.
Oh, that's interesting. That's
So,
fascinating.
really watered out, lots of layers, just building
Right.
like you would, on paper, but onto my clay as a decor side thing with some light things.
Oh,
So we'll see where that goes.
yeah, I like it. I like that a lot. Okay, so yeah, I would love to see some pictures if that works out for you, and just have you talk about that
Oh,
process a little
sure.
bit. So that would be
Yeah.
really cool. Okay, so I would also know. I guess you've talked about doing your ceramics practice, like you said, along with being a parent, having a family, along with trying to teach, and I know that that's really difficult. So I guess my question for you is, can you talk about how you structure your time so you have the ability to work as an artist? I also have a family, also continue to teach. Like what helps you balance all of that? And are I guess are there certain times where you have to maybe step back from something in order to be able to keep doing all that in order to make that all work?
Sure. I balancing life is definitely a challenge. And with having three, kind of younger children, I really have to credit my husband. I think,
Yeah.
having a partner or somebody that you could have support all of these things, because I have to leave the house often because my studio is not at home. So I
Hmm.
have to either work at school or go to the studio. So I really think it comes down to planning out. It's sometimes ridiculous how planning fulfilled we have to be as a family because we
Yeah.
also have soccer and I have band, and then I have my youngest is now doing football and soccer, which is starting this weekend. So
Okay.
it's about to be real crazy. So I think just having that communication and balancing everything out, and yeah, I have to turn a lot of things down, and
Hmm.
that's the hardest part for me. And I'll tell you, my neighborhood here, it's St. Pete, Florida, is booming right now, and there are so many art shows happening, and
Yeah.
so many that I want to just try to even go to just to visit. And I have to turn a lot of things down, but I've come to the realization like I just can't do it all, and so those are just some things that I have to pass or I have to take off my calendar because I can tell, because of whatever is happening that I just can't do it. And that's okay
Yeah.
right now. That's okay. I'm at ease with it. At first it was challenging, but taking on the master's program is really important. So that has to be up there with family first, of course. But then, and then my practice is not as much as I would like for it to be, but I always think of seasons in life, and I think,
Right.
right now my season is just focusing on getting my master's and keep working to be happy, and then also making the boys at home happy too. But my husband definitely takes that understanding. He's a musician, I should say. He's a musician, and I'm an artist. So when we got together, I understood, I would be going to a lot of gigs
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
going to his events, and same with him. So he knew what he was getting into.
Right. Right.
But I am grateful that he's up for supporting all of these things that I do, and as well, I'm up for supporting things that he's into as well.
Yeah, that's awesome when you can, support each other's creative endeavors. That's a very cool thing. And then I guess one last question for you to wrap this up. We always like to offer advice to our listeners, people that are tuning into this. So I guess, what would your advice be for people who are looking for more balance in their life, or maybe they're looking for help prioritizing what they can and should be doing? So like how can they help themselves, I guess, make decisions and figure out where their time and effort should be directed, whether that's teaching, family, arts, whatever the case may be? Like what advice would you have for them?
So what I would say is, for me, what works is making lists and putting everything in the calendar, and then looking at it and going, what is real? What's a realist view of my month or week or day, really? Because sometimes
Hmm.
it's just day to day, especially with teaching and I don't know about you guys, but sometimes it's an emotional roller coaster when I
was
teach.
going to say, you never know what's going to come up from day to day.
You don't. And so even just like staying current, I think is something that I try to do or make an effort to do, because I can tend to go in the past and go in the future too much. But if I have it on the calendar, I know it's planned, I'm not worried about that because it's there. So I think staying in the current could help some folks. I think that, making a list is awesome, especially when you can check it off. Like, I got that done. I did my work thing. Whatever that priority is. And I think communicating with your partner or your support system and just breathing. Sometimes I think, especially with the emotional life, that, we just have to kind of just go, it's going to be okay. Yeah. Everything's going to be okay. So I don't know. I mean, sometimes days I feel like I'm not the one to give advice, but here we are. And I think, if we just try to plan, prioritize, and stay current, that could help us get to the next day.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, a lot of times that is the best approach. And like I said, for a lot of people, any kind of advice helps. So we appreciate that from you. But we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. Laura, thank you so much for sharing so much with us and offering some advice for everybody. It was great to talk to you on here.
Thank you. Great to talk to you too. I really appreciate it.
All right. Obviously, Laura is really enjoying her time as an AOEU student, being a lifelong learner, and I really love hearing about all of that. And she is definitely not the only person that I have heard rave about the Studio Watercolor course. So if you're intrigued by that course or just want to check out all of the courses that we have available, you can do that on the AOEU website, and I will link to those courses in the show notes if you're interested in exploring or learning a little bit more. Now, I'm hoping to have Laura on again in the future to talk a little bit more about ceramics. As she mentioned, a lot of teachers come to her with help on teaching ceramics and their questions about clay. And if you're in that same boat, if you're listening to this and thinking, I have some questions, please feel free to send them my way. We'll maybe try and put something together with Laura for a future episode. But until then, that is all for us. So thank you to Laura for the discussion today. And thank you all for listening. I hope she had some advice that was helpful for you. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering from Michael Crocker. As always, we appreciate you listening, and I will be back with you next week.